So you've just picked up the Warhammer Underworld's Weird Hollow box, and you're wondering where to start with getting the majestic Domitan Storm Coven painted up and ready for your first game. Well, don't worry, we're here to walk you through every step of the painting process, even if you've never picked up a paintbrush before. Painting is a fun and rewarding part of Warhammer, and by following this guide, you'll be able to get the entire warband painted, ready to play Warhammer Underworlds in no time at all. Before we start painting, you'll need to build your miniature. Have a look at our Painting Essentials Your Mini video for some top tips. You'll also need to gather a few things before you start. To paint miniatures, you'll need a water pot and some paper towel, and something to use as a palette. An old plate or even a piece of cardboard will do the job. If you'd like to know more about setting up a painting area, we've got a handy video packed full of helpful information. The paints we've used are listed on screen now. We'll be showing you how to match the colours shown on the box art. In this case, it's the regal blue and gold colour scheme of the Hammers of Sigmar. However, it is entirely up to you how you paint your miniatures, so please feel free to use your imagination. We've also included a list of brushes we've used, but feel free to use whichever brushes you're most comfortable with. Now, the first thing that we need to do is apply an undercoat to the miniature. This forms a foundation for the rest of your paints to stick to, and is an important first step in the painting process. You can apply an undercoat using a spray can or by applying multiple layers of paint from a pot. For this video, we've undercoated by spraying the model with Retributor armour, and to learn how to do this, check out our video Painting Essentials Spray Paints and Undercoating. In the first stage of this guide, we're going to be applying Retributor armour from the pot all over that gold armour. For this, we're going to use a small base brush, as we don't need to worry about being neat here. When you're applying base paints, we need to thin them down with a little bit of water. Doing this, make sure that we don't clog up any of that awesome detail on the miniature. This is called thinning your paints, and we've got a video all about it if you'd like to learn more. Retributor armour is a base paint, and these are specially formulated for higher coverage. To learn more about them, check out our video on them. Now, it might seem odd that we're painting Retributor armour onto the model when we've already undercoated it in the same colour. However, the spray can has a slightly different finish to the pot, so if we do this now, it means we can easily tidy up any mistakes later on in the process. Once you've finished using metallic paints, it's always a good idea to change your paint water. This will stop any of those shiny flakes getting into any of your non-metallic paints. Next up, we're going to use Corax White to paint in any of the white areas. So this is areas like the inner cloak and some of the other details on the miniature. If you're ever not sure which areas should be certain colours, you can refer back to the box art or just choose for yourself. You might want to switch to a medium layer brush here. This will just make it easier to get to those more intricate details. Again, this is a base paint, so remember to thin it down before you apply it. You'll also need to apply a couple of layers to get a full coverage. If you do make any mistakes and get any onto that gold armour, just go back in with some Retributor armour and tidy it back up. Now we're going to paint that regal blue using Cantor blue. Again, a medium layer brush here is a good choice as it's nice and small for all that detail, but also large enough for us to paint fairly quickly. When you're painting this colour, just be careful around the details that we've already finished. Don't worry though, if you make any mistakes, you can just tidy back up with the previous colours. Now it's time to pick out the black leather details with Abaddon Black. Now it's perfectly normal for paint to separate in the pot over time, so before you use it, just make sure you give it a good shake. Blocking in all the main colours on a miniature like this is called base coating, and we've just got a few more to do after this. Now for that rich brown leather, we're going to use Rhinox hide. Apply this just like you have the other base paints, remembering to thin it down and apply a couple of layers. By this point, your model is really starting to come together, and you'll see we've only got a few more base coats to put on. Now we're going to apply Celestra Grey to the rocks, the parchment, and the little vial on the belt there. We'll also be putting this on the gemstone on the sword at the back of the model. Feel free to switch between a smaller and a larger brush depending on which areas you're painting. You'll see we've got some big areas to cover with this paint and also some more intricate details. This will work great as a base coat for some of the extra effects we're going to be adding later on in the process. Now we're going to pick out any red details using Gal Vorbak Red. This is a lovely, deep and rich red, which will really stand out on the model and contrast nicely against the other colours. Just remember to be careful around the details you've already painted. Now we're on to our last base coat, and for this we're going to paint the silver details using lead belcher. Don't forget to change your paint water after you've used metallics. We don't want those non-metallic paints getting shiny. And once you've finished that, you've finished base coating your model. Congratulations! You can absolutely stop here. Your models look awesome and they're more than ready to battle on the gaming table. However, if you'd like to keep watching, we'll show you some extra steps to take this paint job up a notch. With all those base coats done, we're now going to apply some shades to the miniature. And the first one's going to be Reikland Flesh Shade. We'll be using this all over that gold armour. Shade paints are really thin paints, and they're made to add depth to the recesses while slightly tinting any flat surfaces. This really brings a paint job to life as it adds loads of depth and interest to the miniature. We've got a video all about shade paints if you'd like to learn more about them. Reikland Flesh Shade works particularly well over gold as it adds lots of depth and age to the miniature. We'll be applying this all over the gold areas, but we'll be applying it heavily and neatly, working in small sections. The reason for this is it stops the paint from drying out too quickly and making any lines on the surfaces. Just be careful with these paints because they can sometimes pull too much in the recesses of the miniature. If this happens, clean off your brush and use it to soak up any excess. Next, we're going to apply Nuln Oil all over the rest of the miniature. This is a great shade as it works really well over a variety of base coats, and it really helps tie everything together. It's also quite subtle, so it'll add some depth in the recesses without tinting those flat surfaces too much. And because of this, it works well over the white areas too. Now the final thing we're going to do is apply Pilar Glacier to some of the different areas on the miniature. This will give a really nice magical blue effect. Pilar Glacier is a contrast paint, but this particular one is very thin, so we can use it to add some interesting effects like this. Check out our video about contrast paints if you'd like to learn more about them. We're going to use it over the vial to create a mystical looking potion. You might want to apply a couple of layers of this. Just make sure to leave each one to dry before you apply another one. And for the rocks, we're just going to carefully apply it into the recesses. Again, this will give us that blue glowy effect. It will again be quite subtle, so if you want to apply more to make it brighter, please feel free to do so. And the final stage of painting a miniature is to paint the rim of the base. For this, we're using Abaddon Black to match the box art. A small base brush works really well for this as it's a little bit larger so we can get the job done quickly while still being neat. Remember to thin it down and apply a couple of layers. We don't want texture building up on the rim of the base either. When you're handling the miniature, just be careful not to get any paint onto it, so make sure your hands are nice and clean. And there we are, Domitan Eye of the Storm is painted and looking awesome. By following the techniques shown in this video, you'll be able to get the whole warband painted up quickly and easily, ready to unleash their magical prowess on the hexes of the Warhammer Underworlds board. For more tutorials, tips and tricks, you can head to your local Warhammer store where our amazing staff will be happy to help, or check out citadelcolour.com. Well, we hope you've enjoyed the video and we'll see you next time. Bye!